They live is partially a political statement, it's partially a tract on the world that we live in today. And as a matter of fact, right now, it's even more true than it was then. We are manipulated by a lot of media around us. We are consumed by consumerism. And as you can see in the recent events in this country, they are still among us. They do live.
Our impulses are being redirected. We are living in an artificially induced state of consciousness that resembles sleep. The poor and the underclass are growing. Racial justice and human rights are non-existent. They have created a repressive society, and we are their unwitting accomplices. Their intention to rule rests with the annihilation of consciousness. We have been lulled into a trance. They have made us indifferent to ourselves, to others. We are focused only on our own gain. Please understand, they are safe as long as they are not discovered. That is their primary method of survival. Keep us asleep, keep us selfish, keep us sedated.
The truth hurts because the truth is all there is. The truth hurts because the truth is all there is. You can't hide from the truth, 'cause the truth is all there is. You can't hide from the truth, 'cause the truth is all there is. You can't hide from the truth, 'cause the truth is all there is. You can't hide from the truth, 'cause the truth is all there is. You can't hide from the truth, because the truth is all there is. You can't hide from the truth, 'cause the truth is all there is. You can't hide from the truth, because the truth is all there is. You can't hide from the truth. You can't hide.
Alex, as always, we have a lot of individual investors on the line. Is there anything you'd like to say before we end the call?
We're doing it. We're doing it. And I'm sure you're enjoying this as much as I am. Let's not talk to analysts about the burden of being right, our burdens of investing in ontology, our burdens of actually looking at the math, the burden of reading what the Rule of 40 is, the burden of being honest about what an enterprise software company is, or the burden of explaining to your friends that you're really happy. Maybe we should just stop talking about it. I'm very happy to have you along for the journey, and you are partners for us. Every Palantirian, we are crushing it. Everyone else who's listening, we are dedicating our company. We have dedicated our company to the service of the West and the United States of America, and we're super proud of the role we play, especially in places we can't talk about. And we love our success in the U.S. and globally. Also, we are doing in the United Kingdom and many other places. Palantir is here to disrupt and make the institutions we partner with the very best in the world, and when it's necessary, to scare enemies and on occasion kill them. And we hope you're in favor of that. We hope you're enjoying being a partner, and we're really happy and very, very focused on what we're doing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. That concludes Q&A for today's call.
Welcome to the show that explores the social dynamics and psychological forces that shape our world, much like the pecking order in a chicken coop. Why is society structured in rigid hierarchies? Why do we instinctively follow authority? And how is our belief in this structure manipulated to control us? We'll explore the layers of social conditioning, the psychology behind obedience, the hidden mind control techniques that influence our lives, and the universal moral laws that stand in stark contrast to manufactured authority. This is the Coop Files. Welcome everyone. Today's date is the 21st of April 2026. Got the fire raging in the background again. This is part 2 of the presentation, which I've called Worldview, Prison and Hidden Knowledge. This is part 2. I'm not going to go over the housekeeping because I did that yesterday in part 1, and I just want to crack on with part 2. If you haven't listened to part 1, I would strongly suggest that you do that. It is a bit lengthy, although the first 45 minutes or so is just me ranting. In part 1, we broke down kind of the human brain a little bit and looked into consciousness and the masculine and feminine elements of dual consciousness. And this is important background information or foundational information to understand worldview. And that's why I went into such a thorough kind of deep dive. Otherwise, how people see the world might not make sense unless you've got that sort of background information. So just to very briefly recap what we covered in part 1, in terms of dual consciousness, what we have is a masculine dominant master and a feminine passive servant. That's not to say one is better than the other. That's just the two elements to this dual consciousness, the yin and the yang. But it shouldn't be a battle, which is what it is for most people. For most people, this is a battle inside the head, a division, a lack of integration, a lack of integrity. They're at odds with each other internally. It shouldn't be a battle, but a union, a dance, a balance, an alchemical wedding. A symbolic union of opposites, the marriage of a king and queen, representing the merging of masculine and feminine energies in the pursuit of spiritual perfection. And we discussed this royal wedding, this alchemical wedding, is what we would refer to as self-sovereignty or self-ownership. The concept of property in one's own person, expressed as the moral or natural right of a person to have bodily integrity and to be the exclusive controller of one's own body and life. Self-ownership is a central idea in several political philosophies that emphasize individualism, such as anarchism, which just means no external rulers, internal rulership, external freedom. As we have seen, a well-balanced, integrated and functioning mind can reason between what is right and what is wrong. This is the golden rule, which the true anarchist understands, and their philosophy can be summed up with the mantra, live and let live, do no harm but take no shit. Live and let live. Nobody wants to control anybody. Nobody should be controllable. Do no harm, that's the feminine aspect of consciousness, and take no shit is the self-defense masculine element of consciousness. So, moving on, legends and symbolism. I mentioned briefly that the left-right, masculine, feminine hemispheres of the brain is considered a myth in modern-day neuroscience. But if it's such a myth, then why is it encoded into so many legends, mystical teachings, and even popular culture and storytelling? So I thought I would start with, and we're going to look at some of these, these symbols and legends, and even if some of them are just a little bit of light-hearted fun, it's still interesting how the Matrix encodes it into everything that we do. But it's just a myth. So Shakespeare is intimately linked with St. George, the patron saint of England, in two ways. The first is by the legend that Shakespeare was born on St. George's Day and died on St. George's Day. The second is by the attribute of St. George as a spear shaker, or Shakespeare, shaking his lance of light against the dragon of ignorance, as declared of the author Shakespeare by Ben Jonson. Covered Shakespeare and the spear shakers in one of my early episodes. If you want more sort of background into the symbols of the Shakespeare or the Shakespeare or the spear shakers. Anyway, the author Ben Jonson uses the term eyes for dragon, as the dragon is symbolic of the human mind, whose ultimate purpose is to see and know the truth by practicing it and living it. The eye is another symbol for the intelligence or mind. The eye becomes the all-seeing eye. When we can see and know all truth, the all-seeing eye. This is known as full illumination. St. George represents the higher immortal self of a human being, and the lower mortal self of the psyche being the dragon or the reptile brain. Also, in one of the myths about St. George, when he encounters and slays the dragon, he releases the virgin from her captivity in the dragon's cave or within the dragon's belly. He rides off with her on his horse and marries her. The virgin, or the spirit, had previously been consumed or eclipsed by ignorance, which is the dragon. So the spirit, or the divine feminine, the feminine energy, was consumed by the masculine energy of the ego, the lower the lower self, the lower reptile brain. St. George is the personification of Archangel Michael, who fights the dragon Satan. The Hebrew name Michael means one who is like God. Both St. George and St. Michael can be seen as allegories of slaying the lower mind, connecting with the feminine archetype and attaining higher levels of consciousness. So Satan is the same allegorically and symbolically. Satan is the dragon. And this is the ego or the R complex, the reptilian mind, the identification with the material world, the higher self, the archetypes such as St. George and St. Michael. They are the higher self, the neocortex, the pure consciousness. And it's all about connecting with the feminine energy to attain higher levels of consciousness. And this is symbolically attaining these higher levels of consciousness is symbolically like rejecting the number of the beast, 666, the number of man, lower man, and attaining the level of enlightened man, 777, which is also known as hitting the jackpot. Ignorance can be seen as a lack of knowledge and wisdom, which requires the union of both man and woman, masculine and feminine, facts and intuition, logic and reason. This was well understood during the Age of Enlightenment as a way to promote real learning and intelligence. This period in history was also characterized by an emphasis on reason, empirical evidence, and the scientific method. The Enlightenment promoted ideals of individual liberty, religious tolerance, progress, and natural law, which is the existence of inherent laws derived from nature and universal moral principles that are discoverable through reason. This is why reason is so important, because you can discover the truth regarding objective morality using reason. This little legend or story about St. George and the dragon and Saint Michael, who fights Satan and his little helpers. It made me think about those two characters. So St. George is he was believed to have been a real person as well, a soldier in the Roman army, if I'm not mistaken. And a martyr. So yeah, there's the legend of the dragon, but generally speaking, St. George, some believe was a real person, and so he's a physical person. St. George is the physical archetype of a spear shaker, a light bringer, and Saint Michael is, an angel or spiritual version, archetype of a spear shaker. So they are one and the same, and they both represent ultimately the sun. The spear shakers used to believe that it was a dragon who was in the sky causing eclipses of the sun, and they would shake their spear at the dragon to scare it off and to bring back the sun or the light or the truth, the illumination of the sky. It's all sun symbology. And there's two key dates of the year. So you've got Saint George and the dragon, and Michael and the Satan and his army, both representative of the sun. They are both archetypes of the sun in the sky. And there's two key times of the year when the sun goes through a sort of a transformation, and that is, the first one is the summer solstice, which is where the sun reaches its highest point and then stays still for 3 days and then starts to decline after that. And that decline happens on or around the 25th of June. And then the other key date in the cycle is the winter solstice, which is when the sun again stands still for 3 days and then starts to rise from its death on the 25th of December, which is when the Son of God, or the Sun God, is born again on the 25th of December. So they're the two key dates. One's known as Christmas Day, and the Satanists like to call the other one, the one in June, summer solstice, anti-Christmas Day, and that's the one that they celebrate because ultimately it represents the sun being killed, and the invert everything, and celebrate dark rather than light. So these two dates are the key dates. The sun starts its decline on the 25th of June, and it's born again on the 25th of December. And these two archetypes of the sun, Saint Michael and Saint George, just reminded me, I don't know if anybody's worked out where I'm going with this, of another character who was quite well loved, who was born on the 25th of June and died on the 25th of December. If you haven't guessed it yet, it's George Michael. Saint George and Saint Michael. Just another coincidence. Moving on. In Genesis chapter 1, the word God is used as a translation of the Hebrew word Elohim, which is a plural word and refers to Allah. And that means father, mother, Allah. The all who made heaven and earth. So again, you've got the heaven, the spiritual or the feminine aspect, and earth, which is the material or the masculine aspect, created by the Allah, the mother, father, God. Elohim is now usually spelt Elohim, and Al and Allah are usually rendered El and Ella. The important thing to note is that God, as known to Moses, the prophets, Jesus and his disciples, is male, female, and that this is what the AA hieroglyph in the Rosicrucians essentially represents. The hieroglyph of the Rosicrucians essentially represents. This is why man, an embodiment of thoughts, emotions, and actions via the mind, who is created in the image or likeness of God, is created male, female, as indeed are all things, as everything has polarity. This is the double truth, as anciently known. The relationship between the two poles makes the third. And if it is a perfect relationship of love, it is a holy trinity, with the third manifesting or expressing itself as the light of love, known as the child or son, S-U-N, S-O-N, who is also male, female. So every child is, in terms of consciousness, male, female. The man referred to in Genesis 1:26 through 27 is the spiritual mind, the higher immortal self, the seat of consciousness, the neo cortex. Freemasonic symbolism. The contrast between dark and light tiles symbolizes shadow, illumination, ignorance, and knowledge. It represents the balance we eternally strive for in the face of opposing forces and dualities of existence. The square in Masonry symbolizes morality and the essence of the golden rule. To deal with somebody squarely refers to treating a person the way we want to be treated. It indicates Mason's ability to apply the teachings of conscience and morality in testing the rightness of their actions. The compass stands for the ability to make a clear boundary around our desires and passion. It represents self-restraint and control, which is the basis of morality and wisdom. The square and compass combined serve as a reminder to Freemasons to explore personal desires and passions while maintaining morality. The individual who wishes to join is blindfolded, and a rope is tied twice around his arm, around the neck in some lodges. The right pant of the individual is rolled up until the knee is exposed and a slipper is placed on the left foot. The person is now considered fully prepared and is taken to the front door of the lodge, where an extensive ritual dialogue begins with 3 knocks on the door. You could also look at this ritual as representing birth, leaving the singularity consciousness and entering the realm of duality. And just to take a further look at these symbols, so the apprentice is taken into the lodge and blindfolded, and this is the hoodwink, this blindfold, and a lot of people think that the hoodwink means, to dupe someone, and maybe it has turned into that, but in the context of this ritual, it's not. You're not being hoodwinked. So the apprentice is at the doorway. He's gonna be reborn from ignorance and selfishness, and he's going to enter the lodge into duality, and he's going to be blindfolded. And when he walks blindfolded, so obviously he's blind, he's ignorant. There is no more powerful symbol of ignorance than just closing your eyes. And as he walks across the checkerboard floor, obviously the black and the white representing good and evil and right and wrong and all other elements of duality, but ultimately right and wrong, morality. As he walks across that checkerboard floor blindfolded, obviously he can't see where he's stepping. Sometimes he'll step on a white square and sometimes he'll step on a black square. And this symbolizes, the ignorant man, human, who might sometimes get things right and might sometimes get things wrong, but it's never out of judgment. It's just pure luck. Sometimes, a broken clock is right twice a day. And that's how people walk through life, blindfolded. They don't know the difference between right and wrong, and that's what this ritual is in part. And then the hoodwink, so it's a blindfold, it's a hood, but it's got sort of like goggles on it, and they leave the hood on, and then they just, flip open the goggles, which allows them to see. And the idea of that sudden kind of shock is in the apprentice's head. He's just saying to himself, he just says to himself, I see. And now he can see. Now he steps on the white squares. Now that he has come out of ignorance. And that's symbolically the ritual. And most people don't want to take that hoodwink off. Ignorance is bliss. And again, on the right there, the checkerboard floor, you can see, obviously, and then the path to enlightenment is the center path. And you've got the sun on the left there and the moon on the right there, the two pillars of Freemasonry. And the pillar to climb is the central column. This is the balance between masculine and feminine. The emblem on the left there, you can see the two triangles, the blade and chalice there, combined in perfect harmony, the alchemical wedding, which generates the all-seeing eye, knowledge. And the compass, the square rather, also can represent, the floor, the material world, the ground, the earth. It's square, so it's more rigid. You don't get squares in nature, for example. So this is the symbol of the masculine, the more rigid, dominating aspect of consciousness. And then the compass is, can draw circles and all sorts of other, can be used for all sorts of other purposes. And that's, a circle is more connected, more symbolic of nature. Circles and curves exist in nature. And that, I'm not going to do a huge deep dive on Freemasonry, but generally speaking, these are some of the symbolic meanings within in these emblems and tracing boards. So, movies. Everybody's favourite there, Star Wars, already had one mention in this presentation, father and son ruling the galaxy. And in this scene, you can just see that there's the blue and the red. And, representing the two aspects of consciousness. The Matrix, red pill and the blue pill. And the name escapes. It's Total Recall, isn't it? So that quote from Total Recall there is a symbol of your desire to return to reality. That's what the red pill is. A symbol of your desire to return to reality. So generally speaking, the red represents the feminine aspect of consciousness, because red is warmer, and obviously represents cold. The masculine energy is, if left unchecked, is a bit more cold and cruel and less emotional. So the red pill is the symbol of your desire to return to reality, just like St. George, freeing the Virgin in order to gain enlightenment. You have to. It's that feminine aspect which makes you see, just like the Freemason. It gives you. You can see the whole picture. Remember, the right brain, the feminine aspect, is what can make you pull back and see the bigger picture. You're not just narrow-minded and only focused on your next step. You can see the whole checkerboard floor. And that's what the feminine energy allows you to do. That's what the right brain allows you to do. Symbolized in these two movies. The blue pill is ignorance. Pure ego, pure Dunning-Kruger effect. I don't need to know anything. I've got everything I need to know. I'm sorted. Thank you. And then staying on the Matrix, you've got the father, Morpheus, who represents Morpheus is the god of dreams, I believe. Well, thoughts are just like dreams, aren't they? When you're daydreaming, you're just thinking. The father aspect. I mean, they haven't hid this, have they? They haven't even tried to hide it. Trinity is obviously the feminine aspect, and Neo is the sun. The one who is a nihilist, a nobody, until he's motivated following the meeting with Trinity. Again, the feminine aspect is what triggers the awakening. Why didn't I take the blue pill? Ignorance is bliss. Cipher. And again, the blue pill represents ignorance. Another classic film, They Live. And I'm pretty sure most people have seen this movie. Obviously, spoiler alert coming up. If you haven't seen this movie, you need to go and watch it. And once you've watched it, watch it again. This scene is... I think it still is the longest fight scene in any movie, and it's a fight between the main character, who's played by Roddy Piper, and this other guy, and Roddy Piper has discovered that these sunglasses, can make you see people for what they are. The mask slips once you put these glasses on, and again, that's like the it's like the opposite to the hoodwink. Once you put these glasses on, now you can see what you're dealing with, and you know who your friends are and your enemies. So he's discovered these glasses, and it's his sort of his colleague, and he wants He wants him to see what he can see, so he tries to force him to wear these glasses. And he just he doesn't want to see. He doesn't want to come out of his ignorance. You know, he's enjoying just being, you know, just managing in life and just getting through, and he doesn't want to see the truth. Does not want to see the truth. And again, Roddy Piper's character is very, you know, very caring, very compassionate character. And whereas the other guy, his character is, you know, just somewhat, he's happy in his servitude. So again, you've got this kind of, obviously you've got the black and white inference there in the, you know, these two characters, and also you've got that masculine and feminine dual consciousness going on. Roddy Piper cares enough to want to do the right thing. This is Equilibrium. Again, black and white characters there in terms of, you know, a white man and a black man fighting each other. It even gets to the point where, and his name escapes me now, the actor in the middle there. It even gets to the point where he actually starts wearing a white suit, just to hammer it home that it's black versus white, and I mean good versus bad. Interesting, the symbol there in the top right, which looks something like a swastika, and it's the symbol that it's in there. It's I'm forgetting what you call an 8-sided shape. Is that an octagon? Which is a 2-dimensional version of a hypercube, which is the occult symbol for mind control. And obviously this character is Christian Bale. This character is trying to escape mind control. He's trying to do a 23 skidoo while the going is good. And the premise of this film is you're not allowed any emotions. I mean, they couldn't be spelling it out any clearer. You're not allowed any emotions. Everything is grey, shades of grey in this world. You know, you're not allowed any art on your wall. You're not allowed pets. Not allowed anything that makes you feel good. Emotions are banned. And obviously he can't get rid of his this Christian Bale character. So again, you've got the feminine energy fighting back. He can't stamp it out entirely. You can't extinguish it entirely. It will fight back. Another brilliant film. And this one, I thought this was quite funny. I was watching Off Wiedersehen Pet a few weeks ago just for some light relief. I mean, this is a classic British television series made back in the early 80s. The original 2 seasons were made in the early 80s. And it centres around these 3 characters, which are affectionately known as the Geordie Mafia. And I was watching it and I just couldn't, I couldn't get, you know, this trinity out of me head. They have all of the traits. You've got the father figure, Dennis, who is the leader, the father, who the other 2 constantly go to for help, either help and advice or to bail them out of trouble, like children. Oz, the top right there, Neville on the left, they are like Dennis's children. And Oz is very, very, very self-centered, very selfish. very egotistical, very takes everything literally, doesn't have any, or certainly doesn't have much emotional intelligence, and yeah, like I said, all about himself, very charismatic. But it still has this element, just this tiny little glimmer of hope, of goodness in him. But generally speaking, he is, a bit of a narcissist. And then, he thinks he's the bee's knees. And then you have Neville, who's like a whining little schoolgirl, self-loathing, always whinging, never happy, martyr complex, never thinks he's good enough, and takes his so Oz, whereas Oz takes no responsibility, Neville takes his responsibilities far too seriously, to the point where he'll sacrifice himself when he doesn't need to, and use his family as an excuse, and that sacrifice is to the detriment of his own happiness. It's like he likes being miserable. The father, the imbalanced feminine energy, and the imbalanced masculine energy. So this is just some, low budget, cheap UK series that was made in the 80s. Nothing esoteric about it at all. And what I also thought, the other four characters, because obviously it centers around, these are the three main characters. These three characters are the characters that are in every episode. The other characters are ever present, are sort of in there most episodes, but they can come and go. These are the three main characters. And the other four characters, because there's 7 in total, of course there would be 7, it's an interesting dynamic, all of those characters as well. My wife and I and one of my friends, we're having a conversation about this TV series after having watched it again recently, and we were trying to work out which out of all of the 7 characters actually has any morals, proper objective morality, answers on a postcard. I know what my answer is, but what would yours be? And this, again, bit of fun, really, but you just can't stop seeing it. The red versus the blue. Top left there, you've got a little baby lying on the floor, because he's hurt his chin, and then you've got that big bully laughing at him, and right there you've got some people dancing. Bottom right, don't know what they're doing. It looks like they're scared of the ball on that one, doesn't it? You've got these two in the middle at the bottom. I mean, no idea what they're doing. In fact, it looks like he's trying it on, isn't he? Him in the red. He's trying it on. You want to get away quick there, mate. Bottom left. Don't know. No idea what they're doing. I think they're stuck. I think their knees are tied. Oh, they're doing the 3-legged race. Three-legged race at sport. Oh, that's sports day, man. Oh, got the wrong photograph. I was looking for football. I was looking for examples of red and blue. And these are all derbies. That was the thing I forgot. I forgot to mention that. These are all derbies. It's not just, I haven't just found teams that play in red and blue. So yeah, that was it. That's is that the Sheffield derby, top left? London derby. What's that bottom right? Is that another? That's another London derby. And you've got the Manchester derby, and then the Liverpool Everton derby. All just happen to be red versus blue. Divide and conquer. This, another one, it's always red and blue, or from what I can tell, 90% of the time, it's red versus blue, red corner versus blue corner. And why do they call it a ring? It's a square. Is it another nod to Saturn? Beating the living daylights out of your fellow man. Sounds very satanic, doesn't it? Why on earth would you do that to yourselves? Anyway, top left there. I mean, this is where we've come to. Top left there, red versus blue. They're just about to celebrate a man beating up a woman. That's what that picture represents. Look at her in the red. She's absolutely fucked. She's just been beaten up by a man. This one, I discovered that it's encoded into this whole north and south divide, the musical divide of the 90s. The battle between Blur and Oasis, and all the pictures are pretty well. Most of the pictures that I've looked up, they've all got this blue and red in them. And I couldn't, obviously, I couldn't get away from the fact that they do, not just the colours here, these two bands represent the North and South, which the engineers love dividing us in any way they can. North versus South is a big thing in the UK or in England. Northern monkeys and southern fairies. So Oasis are the northern lads with swagger and the rock and roll show and their no nonsense attitude, whereas Blur are the southern arty farty, limp wristed, soft and gentle lads. This is, and again, most of the time you'll see this red and blue. Oasis being blue, obviously that's the cold masculine, and Blur being the red feminine energy, and the arts. The arts is the feminine aspect, and the masculine kind of rock and roll grit, just no nonsense masculine energy everywhere. Religious symbolism. Christ Pontefract, the Almighty, has a raised hand, which is blessing and authority. And the Gospel book, which is teacher, truth, judgment. Christ's dual nature, human and divine. is subtly communicated with asymmetry in facial features, emphasizing both sternness and mercy. So again, the two, the dual nature, dual consciousness, even encoded into religious symbolism. And again, you've got the red and the blue there, and the sun, the illumination. The political symbolism. So, obviously, this is the UK, but it's pretty much the same everywhere. Sometimes the colours swap, probably just to confuse us. So in the UK, you've got the blue for Conservatives, which is the masculine, and the red for Labour, which is feminine. And so the red is feminine. And I remember thinking, but, Labour are known as the left, and the left brain is the masculine. But I do think that they just mix things up every now and again, just to keep us, so we don't recognize the patterns possibly. But also remember that the right brain, so if the red Labour, feminine, I mean, even the word labour has connotations of birth. So anyway, the right brain, the feminine brain, controls the left. So to me, you can look at it that way. Labour is the left because it's the right brain. It controls the left in politics, in the political body. Conservatives' left brain controls the right wing of the body, the right wing of the bird. Two wings of the same bird. So anyway, these symbolize your mummy and daddy. They have all of the same traits. The political ideologies pretty much synchronize with masculine and feminine traits. So your daddy state, limited government. So a father figure would want to, in the household, a father figure would want to limit control. A well-balanced father figure. He wants his children to go out, fly the nest, experience the world, and stand on their own 2 feet. A father wants a prodigal son. So limited control, limited government. Capitalism. So, a father wants his son to, again, be successful in business and take over the reins in the family business. Individual responsibility. Again, that's what it's a masculine trait. Grow up, boy. Take responsibility. Private ownership. Lower taxes. Strong national defense. So remember, defense, the self-defense principle, having a strong national defense is a masculine, it synchronizes with the masculine traits. Tighter immigration controls. So within a household, the father figure, he doesn't just want anybody running around his house. He wants a bit of control. He wants a bit of peace and quiet in that house. Doesn't want to just let anybody in. Doesn't want to be feeding the whole street. He goes to work and he just wants some peace and quiet when he gets home. National sovereignty. Again, sort of a patriot. The masculine. Prioritize economic interests, more sort of like wants the best for the household. And the far right, so this daddy state, left unchecked, turns into the far right, which is National Socialism, where the out of control daddy becomes totally dominant and controlling, like a fascist father figure. The mummy state, on the other side, social justice, equality. So, everybody's equal in this house and everybody's going to get a share of, from a financial perspective. We all put money in the pot and we all share the kitty. More intervention, public ownership. So this is the idea that it goes with equality, doesn't it? Public ownership. Nobody's special. That's the way a mother looks at her kids. These are all as beautiful as each other. These are all special, and you'll all get exactly the same. This is, I've seen this in families. It sounds mad talking about the political system like this, but you do see that where mothers treat their kids identically. They don't have any individuality. They're just little robots, and they all get the same for Christmas. This is what my mother-in-law did. Everybody gets the same. Nobody gets any individual treatment. Nobody gets any individual presence. State healthcare and education. Again, it's about just opening the doors and everybody's equal and everybody's allowed in this house, and I'll make the dinner for the whole street. All of your friends can come round, and that's what mothers love doing. That they love mothering kids. They love having them in the house. Again, I'm generalizing, and they love being the mother. They love being the cool mother, looking after their needs, making sure they're all right. There's nothing wrong with that. In a household, relaxed immigration, like I say, just let anybody in. International cooperation. They want their equality and public ownership spread throughout the whole of the international community, and support international institutions. So it's the opposite of, obviously, to national sovereignty. It's international in its mindset. It's international socialism. And this is what becomes the extreme far left. International socialism, or what we know as communism. And that's the political spectrum. That's your red and your blue and your mummy and daddy that you choose. That's the political spectrum. Choose your parents and choose your what flavour of socialism would you like? Would you like some blue sprinkles on your socialism, or would you like some red sprinkles on your socialism? You choose. Your choice, because you're free. You're free to choose which flavour of socialism you want. And then when it's, when it becomes extreme, like it pretty much is at the minute, then that's when, obviously, the spectrum, the pendulum just swings from one to another. And the more extreme one gets, the more extreme the other has to get to counterbalance it, because everything's a balance. And you just swing from one to the other. And we're swung to the far left at the moment in this People's Republic of England. the UK Communist Party, also known as Labour. Anyway, enough of that. The real spectrum, wouldn't the real spectrum be totalitarianism on the far right? So that could be either communism or Nazism. They're both totalitarian in their nature, right? Nobody wants, well, you'd like to think nobody wants to live under a totalitarian regime. So that's the extreme of the political spectrum, total control and domination over the individual. Well, the extreme of that has to be no government. And then it's a scale. That would be the natural scale, the natural spectrum. And that would be the left. That would be the true left, the true liberal mindset would be no government or anarchism, real anarchism, not some of the fake stuff that you see about with a little bit of socialism mixed in, with a little bit of communism mixed in. Well, yeah, it's like putting a fly in the ointment, isn't it? It just doesn't work. But anyway, that would be the true spectrum. But we're free. We live in a democracy. Teachability. So again, this is another element of the left versus right. And this really just goes to show that, there is an imbalance in people's brains, in their consciousness, which leads to these opposite poles. So on the left, fully closed to new learning, arrogant, cynical, over skeptical. They're the traits of the left-brained individual. They don't need to learn. They're skeptical, arrogant, cynical, close-minded. Why would you need to learn anything when you know everything? You're perfect. There is no need for any improvement. You are the teacher. Well, they're not even the teacher actually, because they don't even want it. They don't even though they know nothing. They still, they hoard knowledge for their own selfish reasons. But anyway, clearly that's a left-brained imbalance, and then the right-brained. So they don't learn anything. They're ignorant, and that's where ignorance comes in that closed-minded modality. Total ignorance. And then on the right, the extreme right, you've got naive, gullible, and trusting. Again, it's pretty obvious, really, isn't it, that if you haven't got a decent amount of skepticism, and then you are going to be gullible and trusting and naive, and your mind is so open, your brain will drop out, and that's a poor learner, because they'll believe anything. So both sides of the spectrum don't learn anything. And then obviously in the middle there, the perfect place to learn, the best position to learn, is between the teacher and the student. This is somebody who knows that they know some things, they're not arrogant, they don't think they know it all. They know what they know, and they know that they don't know it all, and they're willing They're willing to share their knowledge, what they do have. They're willing to share their knowledge, at which point they're the teacher, and they want to see the student grow. They want to see somebody else gain the knowledge and wisdom that they have, and watch that person grow. That's the satisfaction in that. And then the student, but they can, they can become the student because they have a balanced view of reality and of themselves. They know that they don't know it all, so they're happy to become the student and listen, turn off the chatter of the ego and just listen for half an hour and apply new knowledge, which is obviously wisdom. And that's the best place to learn. And that curve, we talked about circles and curves in nature. Again, this is a natural bell curve. One of the things which, just to slightly sidestep, during the nonsense of 2020, that was one of the telltale signs of the waves. There were spikes. Spikes don't exist in nature. Everything would be a curve in the graphs, but it wasn't. It was extreme spikes, which suggest there was some shenanigans, man-made shenanigans going on with those peaks and spikes in the death rate. Anyway, I digress. Mockery. Everybody will recognise this fancy dress parade. So let's break it down. This is the the dark humour of the social engineers, where this is meant to be one of the most the most celebrated sort of point in somebody's educational journey when they graduate or when they are gradually indoctrinated and they earn their degree, their first degree. And obviously we know that the degrees are something that gets you up the Masonic ladder. So let's have a look. The mortarboard on the head. So obviously we've seen a mortarboard is obviously what you use to build with. You build buildings out of stone and cement using a mortarboard, and it's a tool of a stonemason, and it's also a black square like a checkerboard, and they have their black cloaks on, just like Saturn. Saturn comes in a black cloak, and the black square is a symbol of Saturn. And then they've got their magic wands there because they are now magicians. They have all of the magic knowledge, and they've got their magic wands made out of wood, out of holly wood. But it's not. It's just worthless bits of paper. And the black square like I said, it is a symbol of Saturn, but it's also, if you think it's called the mortarboard, it's a stonemason's tool. The checkerboard floor is the symbol of where a mason starts his journey. He goes onto the checkerboard floor blindfolded, and then he can eventually see once he removes the blinkers. Now, the apprentice starts his journey at the door of the lodge, and he's just about to step on top of the checkerboard floor. These poor souls, they're under the square. They're not on the square. They're under it. If you're said to be on the square, it's like on the money. You're right. These are under the square, and they're under the black square. They haven't even. They're not at the door of the lodge. They are under the floor of the lodge. So the lodge always has a number of steps up to the doorway. So they're clearly still beneath that entry level of the lodge. They're under the black square, and it's just pure occult mockery. And the occult, they've got and the mockery is. It's not. Obviously, we'll see. It's not just people who have been gradually indoctrinated who are mocked, but they seem to reserve some of the best mockery for the people who the occult obviously believe that they deserve the best mockery, because they have bought the lie so much that you're enlightened once after you've been indoctrinated. So they reserve some of the best mockery for those that they respect the least. And they have a name. They have a name for the people who, for the masses. They call them the dead, because they haven't even started their journey yet. The dead. And that's what that represents to me. Under the black square. You're underground, you're dead. 6 feet as well, on average. 6 feet between the ground and the square. The dead. And they think the occult, dark occult psychopaths of the world and the twisted social engineers, they think that because these people are dead, they're not alive, they're not fully functioning, they're imbalanced, totally ignorant, and they'll never see the truth. They think that justifies why they can, treat humanity the way they do, because they're dead. Well, you can't, there can't be any bad karma for treating a dead person immorally. Maybe that's what Jimmy Savile thought. Anyway, I think you know what I mean. They see us as dead or as some sort of animals, and we don't, therefore we shouldn't have the full range of natural rights, because those rights are only reserved for, beings with the capacity to reason between right and wrong. And we can't do that. As a whole, we can't do that. In the aggregate. More mockery. Obviously, 2 order followers there. Coming to enforce the removal of your natural rights. Black and white. You can see the checkerboard floor. The checkerboard floor wrapped right around the crown chakra in that pineal gland. And right at the front, right over the pineal gland, is that the 8-pointed star, which is the same as the octagon. It's just a different representation of it. And again, the 3D version of that's called the hypercube, or the 4D version. And that's the symbol, that's the occult symbol of mind control. Right across the forehead, of being completely mocked. And then they're just so ignorant to it. You do have to laugh. You do have to laugh. They do have a good sense of humour. And the best thing about their sense of humour is, obviously, the people who are being mocked not only don't get it, but even if you pointed this out to them, they would just reject it. So I often go through this slide, levels of consciousness, and let's just remind ourselves where we think these imbalanced people are in the level of consciousness. The lower ego self, as we've said, that's down in the dumps there, down in purgatory, heading towards hell. That's the lower ego, the reptilian brain, the dragon, Satan, satanic mindset of selfishness. It's all about me, 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 me. That's your left brainer, lower ego self. Can't keep their desires in check, which is exactly what we spoke about during the free Masonic initiation. They're suffering down there, in suffering in the third dimension. That's where they live in the victim abuser consciousness. The victim and the abuser is a twisted version of the masculine and feminine, and they're only capable of, the only real emotion they're capable of is anger. Fear, obviously. That's how they make all of the decisions, based on fear. Fear of losing something. And anger is pretty much the only emotion that they truly express or experience. They don't actually feel guilt and shame. They've developed a coping mechanism to not feel those two emotions because they're not mature enough to cope with those powerful, deeply powerful emotions, which are obviously there to teach you a lesson. And obviously, because the right brain is somewhat malfunctioning, it's not capable of experiencing. They're not capable of experiencing these emotions. Like I say, it's a coping mechanism because they've never matured. They've never grown. They've never reached levels of self-empowerment and self-realization. They like it down there. They like it in hell. They like the dog eat dog because they just think they're a bigger dog than the next dog. They like it down there. They don't want to share. They don't want to do the right thing. They don't want to have morals and a conscience. They get in the way of success. And they top out at pride. You can see their pride. It's as high as they can get. It's what drives them, is their own selfish pride, dysfunctional pride. And they haven't got the courage. They haven't got the courage to actually question themselves whether or not they actually need to improve, whether or not they're right or wrong, whether or not they need to actually learn some more, whether or not they're ignorant, whether or not their actions are harmful to others. They haven't got the courage to do any of that, because it takes courage to admit when you're wrong. It takes courage to admit you're not actually perfect. It takes courage to actually allow yourself to just feel guilt and shame. Sometimes you make a mistake. Sometimes you feel guilty. Sometimes you could make a mistake that makes you feel shameful. These emotions are there for a reason, to help you learn. You learn by your mistakes, and it takes courage. And these people are cowards, absolute cowards of the highest order. And they're never ever going to reach neutrality. You can see after courage is neutrality. There's a balance there. Once you reach the rational, emotional self, you reach a balance. The courage to admit that you were wrong. Then there's the balance, and then you can start to climb that scale into, emotions and experiences such as love and awareness and compassion, empathy. But no, they just get apathy. Well and truly consumed by the dragon.
How'd we get here? And how do I get away? I feel so helpless, and I can't do this again. You promised this time, darling, that it wouldn't be the same. So how'd we get here? And how do we make a change? The more I run, the harder I fall. I'm so tired and sick of it all. Sometimes wish that I could just disappear. I don't know if I'll love you again, but I don't wanna have to pretend. I'll spend my life guided by my fear. Now we're face to face. I'm standing right here. So why don't you tell me what you need me to hear? 'Cause I can't run away. I have nowhere to hide. So tell me the secrets that you hold deep inside. You are only my reflection. 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 Are you distracted? I don't feel like you're here. I see you talking. Why's the truth so hard to hear? The more I run, the harder I fall. I'm so tired and sick of it all. Sometimes wish that I could just disappear. I don't know if I'll love you again, but I don't wanna have to pretend. I'll spend my life guided by my fear. Now we're face to face. I'm standing right here. So why don't you tell me what you need me to hear? 'Cause I can't run away. I have nowhere to hide. So tell me the secrets that you hold deep inside.
Right. So the left and right hemispheres of the brain have competing visions of reality, and that increasingly we live in a world dominated by the left hemisphere. Imagine a world where all of us only had one hemisphere, the right. We would see a lot of connections between things, and we would see a broad picture, but it might not be so good at focusing on details. Emotionally, the mood might be somewhat melancholic and sad, because it's one of the aspects of the right hemisphere's realism and sympathy, a capacity for empathy, that it does feel suffering. We would not be able to make calculations in the same way. We would be good at coming up with ideas, but we might not be good at actually carrying out the nuts and bolts and getting it working as a machine. So what would a world with no detail, out of focus, and without definition look like? What word would you use to describe this world? Would you use this word? What if all of us just had only the left hemisphere? What would that world look like? We would lose sight of the big picture. There'd be an emphasis on the details. Instead, there would be a great emphasis on predictability, organizability, anonymity, categorization, loss of the unique, and an ability to bring things down into parts, but not really see what the whole is like. There'd be a need for total control, because the left hemisphere is somewhat paranoid. Anger would become the keynote in public discourse. Everything would become black and white. The left hemisphere needs to be decisive, because don't forget, it's the one that's catching the prey. It's no good at going, well, yeah, it could be a rabbit, but it might not be. It's not going to go, I'm not going for it. So it likes black and white. It doesn't like shades of meaning. So in this world, we would lose the capacity to see grades of difference. We would understand everything. We would misunderstand everything that is implicit and metaphorical, and have to make rules about how to achieve it. It's my contention that the world we have come to live in today is a world that's increasingly looks like the latter picture. An overemphasis on predetermined systems of algorithms, the sense of social alienation, the way in which we live divorced from nature, which is a very new phenomenon. The insistence on extreme positions, black and white, not a nuanced argument about the pros and cons of every single thing. And remember, the left brain can be delusional. It wants to convince you that there are no problems in the world, certainly none that involve you. There are no problems in the world. Seriously, that's what they think. It's just the way it is. It's not a problem. So while the world burns and turns to dust, living conditions become harsh and unforgiving, deserted even. The left brain will convince you that within this harsh reality, everything is just perfect, like your own little fertile area of utopia. What word would you use to describe this little fertile utopia in the middle of destruction? Would you use this word? Interesting. Even the names seem to have connotations of the left and right brain imbalances. The left brain just thinks everything is an oasis, and the right brain is just a bit blurred in its vision. Do you think? Definitely? Maybe? And just to finish off on the blur oasis symbology, the amount of occult symbology within that Oasis album cover is quite fascinating. And I think isn't it the record label manager is a self-confessed occultist, as is the lead singer of Blur. So they are into, they are definitely, it's not a secret that they are interested in all things occult. Left brain, worldview, prison. Because this person, so this is known as randomness. That's their worldview. Because this person lives with an internal obsession with control, constantly analysing and ordering things, what's happening is that this severe internal imbalance towards order and control is searching for the balance of that, but it's searching externally. So whereas you would look for the balance internally, it's not doing that. It's not. These people aren't looking inward, because the problem's not going to lie within. It must lie without, and they're looking for that extreme balance to balance out the extreme control that's going on inside of their head. So they're looking for that balance externally. In order to get balance, they need to see the world as random and chaotic. And they need to see the world that way so that they can analyze and order the world just like they want with everything else. That's why they're obsessed with external control, because the world needs control, because it's so chaotic in their worldview. So that they are obsessed with control, and the need, like I say, they need to analyze and categorize and order things, because that's what they're constantly doing inside their own heads. So they need the external, they need the external world to be of a certain nature to allow them to do that externally as well. So the world is chaotic and randomness. And that's why these control freaks, that's why they think, chaos would ensue if we didn't have government, because the moral relativists, and they have a severe left brain imbalance, which poisons their worldview. Someone who subscribes to a worldview of randomness actually believes that the universe is a cosmic accident and that there's no underlying purpose to anything. There is no underlying intelligence that governs the working of nature, and everything is simply accidental or a coincidence. These are your coincidence theorists. Nothing is connected. Everything is separate. And because they do not subscribe to natural law principles, and they believe that there is no purpose to existence, this is a nihilist, in other words. They believe that we came from nothing and will return to nothing. This is, also a severe atheistic and solipsistic mindset, which ultimately leads to scientism and, as I say, nihilism. Because if you don't believe there's any purpose to anything, well, what is the point? There is no God. Man is God. And science is the only way you can know anything. If you can't measure it with the five senses, it doesn't exist. Pure logic and data. These people stand and worship at the altar of scientism, and they believe that the five sense science, be all and end all of everything, is the be all and end all of everything to know about the universe, which is total arrogance. And this is how a lot of scientists think as well. That the universe exploded into existence from an infinitesimally small singularity for no reason in a single moment, and it has no purpose. That's what they think. And as far as I'm concerned, if you believe that, you will believe anything. And, this Big Bang theory, the unknowable starting conditions, they want you to believe without any evidence around how this happened, that it happened, and then if you just give them that one belief, then they can explain everything that follows. So just give us that one. I can't tell you how it happened, but just one belief, please, without any evidence, and then we can explain everything from that. And when you think about it, they have to believe this because, they can't possibly accept that there's an underlying intelligence that orders nature, and that, in fact, natural law does actually exist and it does govern us. They want to be in control, not nature. So they're more than happy to just accept without evidence that that's what happened. Because the other is, well, it's unbelievable, but it also shatters their worldview. And, their desire to be in control. And ultimately, these people think that the universe is a huge dead machine. And that we're all dead biological computers. And it's like they've subscribed to some sort of twisted form of science. And, modern cutting edge science doesn't think like this. But these people have bought this nonsense because that's what's in the textbooks and, in the Soviet style education system. And it's reinforced through the media and the old dinosaur science. The system wants to hold on to the old paradigm But you know, this it doesn't serve who we really are. But you know, these extreme left-brained individuals, they don't want to, remember, they don't want to change. They love things exactly the way they are, especially when they're in control. And this extreme ideology, which grows out of atheism, leads to solipsism, and scientism believes everything can be measured, as I say, from the five senses. They believe that there is no such thing as objective truth, and that reality is based on perceptions. And this poisoned worldview leads to, without exception, is moral relativism. And again, I've kind of explained this, but it's always worth going over it again. If everything is random and subjective, and there's no truth, and there can't be objective right and wrong, and there's no higher intelligence than man, there's no such thing as a creator or an intelligence within nature. This, extreme mental and what's happening in this extreme mental obsession for power and control is that the person is trying to justify why they should be allowed to do whatever they want based on their own perceptions and their own desires. Again, that desires control them down there in the third D, suffering. So they think there's no such thing, as objective moral principles. That's what, somebody who holds this worldview, that's the conclusion they've come to. Obviously, if there was, such a thing, well, there is. If they did think or understand that there was a objective difference, you could objectively decipher between right and wrong, then they wouldn't be able to get away with their own selfishness. So if there's no underlying intelligence in nature above man, there's no right and wrong. Everything's based on my perception and what's right for me, and I can basically do whatever I want at the expense of anyone. And this dog-eat-dog mentality is what we've already described as social Darwinism. And that's the ideology of the so-called elite who run this shit show that we call the world. The survival of the socially fittest with the best genes. And if you believe that your genes determine your social status and whether or not you become one of the so-called elite, then you'll start to believe in the notion that you can play God. And that you can determine who lives and who dies. And this is called eugenics. And I've already got into this. They have given that mindset to the vast majority of people through their social engineering, through the educational system, through the media, as I've said, and through scientism. They have literally given that mindset to the vast majority of people. They don't need, and again, I've already said this, they don't need to sit around a table planning and scheming. They just need to have fingers and lots of pies and lots of people, all synchronized to the same agenda, which really just means have the same mindset. This is total mind control. If you can control somebody's mind to the point where you can, ensure they have this worldview, then you don't need to do anything. If you want to annihilate consciousness and ultimately enslave the planet, you just need to sit back and watch it. It'll take care of itself, because they're all interested in their own selfish ends, and they're all obsessed with control. And they'll create the prison for you. And that's what's happening. Eugenics, murdering elderly people and murdering babies just before birth. And people are clapping for it, begging for it, shouting for it, protesting for it. Don't want to hear the arguments against. The right-brained worldview prison. This is called determinism. And because this person lives in an internal state of imbalance, of absolute chaos, so the complete opposite, internally, they have no control, total lack of control. Think about it, if you they can't control their emotions, they are ruled by their emotions, and they have no emotional regulation. They're out of control, and if you didn't know whether you were coming one moment to the next because your emotions were up and down and round, then you would feel somewhat chaotic inside. So what they're looking for externally is control. So again, it's the opposite. They want to see the outside world as being controlled by something or some higher force. That's the balance that they're looking for. And like I say, what this leads to is a worldview of determinism. And what they believe is that God, or whatever they may call God, has total control of all outcomes, of all possibilities, and of all eventualities. Everything is just written. All events are preordained by the Creator, or whatever their version of that is. And they see the universe as a big clock controlled by the Creator. And that essentially there is no such thing as free will. How can there be? If everything is determined, then there is no free will. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter how much you try, how much you scream and shout, how much you protest, how much you try and change yourself. Nothing will make any difference. It's all a plan. A plan by God or Donald Trump. So obviously this is the complete opposite to randomness, where somebody believes that they have the will to do whatever they want and there are no consequences. A person with a deterministic worldview doesn't believe that free will exists. We're not in control of anything. Like I say, God is. Trust the plan. So, whereas the randomness ideology does not believe in natural law principles governing reality, the person subscribed to determinism believes that natural law, they might not call it that, but they believe that natural law is in complete and total control of everything, including the choices you make. and the total and the actions you take. You do not have free will, and simply put, everything is destiny. Total control. A person with an extreme right brain imbalance does not have a modicum of control. They are totally controlled by their emotions, as I say. And therefore, they're trying to balance this extreme mindset with the view of the world being totally controlled by God or whoever. And I think also they would probably subscribe to the idea that government is God. So as long as you know there is somebody controlling something out there, you know, then they're happy. Remember that the right brain is the servant. It's all about bowing down to a higher authority, be it God or man-made authority. Total slave think. So the person with the left-brained worldview subscribes to believing that they are God. Social Darwinism, eugenics, totalitarianism. They believe that they are the master and can do anything they want, whereas the person with the right-brained worldview does not believe in free will. They do not believe that you can change anything. Everything is predetermined, and all of your actions are meaningless. So what is the point in trying to create change? Change is impossible. Action is meaningless. God or Donald Trump has everything in hand. Trust the plan. There is no need to do anything. Why do anything? Why wake up and eat in the morning? This is the perfect slave to accompany the master. So again, it's just like the dual consciousness. It's meant to be a master and a servant working in harmony. And what happens externally with these imbalanced worldviews, it creates externally that slave and master mentality. And this deterministic worldview, this is the hallmark of religious fundamentalism and religious extremism, such as the 20% in the people in the US who still believe that while the Trump administration continues to destroy America from within, that in fact he is simply playing 5D chess. That's some sort of religious fundamentalism, religious extremism, this unwavering belief in that psychopath. So one worldview has no morals and the other has religious extremism. And both of these worldviews are absolute nonsense. Even when I'm talking about them, you can tell they're nonsense, not backed up by anything. And neither of these worldviews hold any information which is useful to our evolution and consciousness. Both are rooted in fear, as we've seen on the scale of consciousness. Both are a contracted state of consciousness, not expanding state, contracted, suffocated, unable of change, and can never serve our betterment or lead to anything good, or anything unifying or uplifting, peaceful, and most importantly, can never lead to freedom. Neither of these worldviews can lead to freedom. One wants to control and the other one wants to be controlled. Where's the freedom in that? And just look at, current times. More war, more suffering, more division, more depression, more negativity, more anxiety. Most people will say that they want peace and freedom, but will then admittedly subscribe to one of these worldviews. And with that state of mind, you can't build a reality based on peace and freedom. It'll always be built upon fear and control. Because that's all that these mindsets are capable of creating. They can't create anything above that level of fear and control, because that takes a higher state of consciousness, and everything is created from consciousness, from mind. And neither of these ideologies are based on the fundamental principles of truth and natural law. So what is the truth? What is the hidden knowledge? So as we've seen with everything in this presentation, this two-part presentation, there is always opposites, extremes, polarity. And what we have discovered is that the truth always lies in the center, in this dualistic reality. It lies in the balance. The truth is never found in extremes. The truth is not extreme. It does not exist in schisms. The truth isn't a separation or division. It's a union. It's the middle pillar. It doesn't go all the way to the left, and it doesn't go all the way to the right. It's balanced, harmony, and peace. So the truth is found within the underlying principles of what these ideologies reject. So there is nothing useful within these ideologies. So look at what they reject. So those who follow the ideology of randomness completely reject natural law. They do not accept that what we choose are our emotional polarity. The behaviors we act out creates our reality. They don't believe in the law of karma, the law of attraction, or the law of cause and effect. They do not believe that the universe acts like a huge mirror, reflecting back at you that which you put out. They do not believe in the golden rule. They do not want to live and let live. Those who follow the ideology of determinism don't believe in the opposite. They don't believe that free will exists. That you should just lie down like a good little doormat, a good little slave. Religion teaches this. It's rooted in self-loathing, as we've discussed. And the idea that you're not good enough to make a difference, be subservient to a higher authority, God or otherwise, and we can't create change. So the truth is, the fundamental principles of reality are what each of these totally imbalanced ideologies rejects. The universe is like a mirror which works on these two universal principles coming together to form a synthesis. The two seemingly opposing principles form a synthesis which we operate in within natural law boundaries, and we get to determine what our experience will be based on our choice between the dynamics of love and fear. So there's a natural law principle, which is the deterministic component of our reality. So there is the law of karma, cause and effect, that is determined. And then there's the free will component, which is the random component of our reality. So we do have free will to make our own choices, and those choices will have an impact based on the law of cause and effect. So one is extreme, one of the worldviews is extreme determinism, and the other one is extreme free will, where you do anything without consequences. The truth is in the balance. Cause and effect is the deterministic component, and free will is the random component. You are free to make the decisions that you make. Nobody is controlling you. Nobody should be controlling you. And if you are being controlled and coerced, then you are a weak-minded individual. The Jedi mind trick only works on the weak-minded. So we can change it, and we can use the laws of nature to our advantage using our free will. Think about it and contemplate it. Does it make sense? The perfect balance of extremes. Natural law is the deterministic principle of our reality. There are laws of creation which are in effect, just like gravity, which have consequences if ignored. And every cause has an effect, and every effect has a cause. This is the underlying intelligence within our reality. And free will is the random principle within our reality, because nobody at the deepest level can actually coerce anybody into doing anything, into knowing anything or believing anything. You have free will, and you are either using it or you're letting someone else use it for you. But it is there, and you are either in control of it or you've given that control to someone else, in which case you have usurped your power. If we use our free will in accordance with natural law principles, we will create peace and order and freedom. If we choose the fear dynamic of consciousness and choose not to align ourselves with natural law, which was put there for our betterment, we will experience disorder, chaos, suffering, and more control. And can you see that playing out in the world? And this is how reality works. This is the hidden knowledge. It's discoverable and knowable, measurable. It's not a belief system, and it does not require your belief for it to be in effect. Just like gravity doesn't require your belief for it to be true. And gravity will have no mercy if you are so ignorant that you just think you can defy gravity. Then nature will bring you back down to earth. And that's how nature's laws work. And this law is no different. Ignorance and a lack of conscience and morality equals more and more control and suffering. So we're bound by the laws of nature, and we're also bound by the law of free will. Unfortunately, we are also bound by the free will of others. And that's where the problem lies. Until the majority of people understand these two principles and act in accordance with them, then nothing is going to change. The control system is not suddenly going to give up its power. We will continue to go round and around the wheel of suffering. As we have already discussed, the solution to the problem can be found by addressing the root cause. The control system exists due to the vast majority of people being ignorant to the principles of natural law, of excuse me, of objective morality, and the importance of doing the right thing regardless of the consequences. Until we reach a tipping point in the correct direction, nothing will change. The long-term solution is to educate people on these principles. The principles discussed in this presentation. Is it, is this possible? Yes. Is it easy? No. The short-term solution, therefore, can only be to prepare for the long haul. Recognize who is capable of actually being open-minded enough to take in new information of this nature without immediately rejecting or accepting it, and who can actually become aware of the true nature of reality and raise their level of consciousness to help create a better future, and in the short term become trusted allies in your own life who have your best interests at heart. You can't save everyone. Most people don't want to be saved. They don't even realize they're in trouble. Most people enjoy their servitude, enjoy their comfort, and they do not want to do anything. They do not want to take responsibility, and they do not have the ability to respond. Any problems in the world are not their problems. So why should they have a responsibility to do anything about it? These people are not worth wasting your time on. You're never going to change these types of mindsets, these belief systems. Their ego is attached to their worldviews, onto their belief systems. If you pose a threat to their worldviews or their belief systems, effectively you are a threat to them. These people will never wake up. Put your energy where it will not be wasted and consumed with no reward. It's my firm belief that there is a causal link between suffering and waking up to the evil in this world. Unfortunately, it may well just take a bit more suffering to jilt people out of their slumber. Never trust someone who claims to have found the truth. Trust one who is looking for it. People want to live in a consensus reality. Let those who want to be deceived be deceived. When the devil needs hanging, will you tie up the rope and shout pull? Let's put an end to this bull. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed part 2 of that presentation, Worldview, Prison and Hidden Knowledge. I'm a bit peckish, so until next time, I'll see you later.
And now it seems as if we're used to the shaggy. We made our beds and now we hate where these beds be. Took nothing at all to part this Red Sea. I'm a shackled child, singing the good song of freedom. They've got no pride, they interrupt our grieving. Teardrops dropping for the pain of the world. My best friend dies when she was just a young girl. Left me here to fend for myself. Now the pain never leaves. We just learn to cope. So when the devil needs hanging, will you tie up the rope and shout, pull? Let's put an end to this bull Zen thing. How many years before we practice what we preach? How many tears before we truly clinch the peak? Only to find that there is no honey on the moon. Official goon with the unofficial croon.
I'm all things to all men, all of the women, all the children. Just say when and I'll take it till my TARDIS. Who's the hardest? Who's the hardest? I'm all things to all men, all of the women, all the children. Just say when and I'll take it till my TARDIS. Who's the hardest? Who's the hardest?
16 bar cycles, heartfelt recital. From the wacky blackie man, they should've called me Michael. Look at the monster you made, look at the monster you pay. But you claim no responsibility, cause it's each to himself in these times that we live. Does God have a sense of humor? Then the joke's on us, cause we're chasing our tails for how long? The tussle makes us how strong? Vintage poor people's fun. If we could ease up on these booze and fags, then just maybe life wouldn't seem so mad. Be a man, my dad said, but what the hell he know? He lost these dreams, he lost his flow, and I don't wanna be alone. I'm born king, so where's my throne? I'm too intense, I'm too deep, I'm too nice for life. So what makes this place so nervous?
I'm all things to all men, all of the women, all the children. Just say when and I'll take it till my TARDIS. Who's the hardest? Who's the hardest? I'm all things to all men, all of the women, all the children. Just say when and I'll take it to my TARDIS. Who's the hardest? Who's the hardest? I'm all things to all men, all of the women, all the children. Just say when and I'll take it to my TARDIS. Who's the hardest? Who's the hardest? I'm all things to all men, all of the women, all the children. Just say when and I'll take it to my TARDIS. Who's the hardest? Who's the hardest?
But you claim none. We're searching for Jesus, but I'll be damned if I'll be crucified with 10,000 spies, compulsive lies. They hate me, they love me, they hate me, cause I'm all things to all men, all of the women, all the children. Just say when, and I'll take it to my TARDIS. Who's the hardest? Who's the hardest?